Hi guys, welcome to my channel, Wargamer Dad here, and it's this week we're reviewing issue 7 of the Imperium magazine. You may notice I haven't reviewed issue 6 yet. My local shop's still trying to get hold of it for me. Reese, one of the community, is sending me a spare copy he has, so we'll be reviewing it, but obviously I can't review it until I got it. So, without any further ado, issue 7. Alright, this is one of the less interesting issues, obviously, because what you're getting here is, well, model-wise and stuff, because what you're getting here is 3 paints. Still reasonable value for money. Or rather, you're still saving money, because at $2.75 for Corax White and $2.75 for Mechanicum Grey and $3.70 for Retributor Armor, because it's a metallic, the RRP would be $9.20 and you're paying $8.99, so you're getting a little bit more than 10% off. I haven't done the exact calculation because it doesn't matter. But you're saving like $1.21 technically at sorry, where are we? $8.99. No, that's £9. $9.20. That's not true at all. My brain's still going for the $7.99 price, idiot. You're saving 20p, which isn't much, but you're still saving money, and that's the main thing. Every saving you make on this magazine contributes. Now, a lot of you may already have these colours, but Mechanicum Standard Base is a colour I'm using a lot of because I'm doing Wolf Spear, and one of the colours I've picked is Mechanicum Standard Base. Retributor Armour is a solid deep gold, and Corax White is just white paint, so you can't really go wrong with black paint, white paint, red paint, blue paint, green paint. They're your primary colours. Even if none of your armies are those colours, they're great for mixing, great for tinting, and great for pretty much anything else, you know, highlights and stuff like that. If I want to highlight Mechanicum Grey, I can either find a lighter grey or I can mix in a bit of Corax White. So those are, you know, that's very utilitarian. That's reasonably utilitarian. That happens to be the pen I'm using a shit ton of. So yeah, you're saving 20p, which is not very much, but not nothing. And again, you've got whatever value you ascribe to the magazine. With the magazine, obviously, it's harder to ascribe a value because it depends whether or not you like what's in it. White Dwarf used to be in a weekly format a while ago, in an attempt to please people in the same way, in that you could buy the ones you wanted and not necessarily have to buy the ones you didn't, because that was one of the complaints about White Dwarf. People would say, well, I'm paying £5 for one article. Unfortunately, GW then found that people just weren't buying a lot of White Dwarfs and they were making a lot. So they shifted back to the monthly format and just tried to make it better, which is kind of what they should have done in the first place. They didn't really listen. They did and they didn't listen when they went to the full thing. People, well, most people claim that at one point White Dwarf had become basically an advertising magazine with little or nothing else in it, and you're expected to pay $5 for it, yeah. Whereas you go online and look at them for free. So yeah, with magazines, obviously being charged $8.99 for this magazine, but the value of this magazine is very much down to what you feel it's worth. And you know, you might throw it straight away. You might keep all of it in a binder. I myself keep some pieces of the magazine. At this point, I'm throwing a lot of the magazine away, because once I've built it, I've built it. I know already how I'm painting my Marines, and I'm not confident that a lot of the rules in here are going to be rules by the time the magazine's finished. I don't feel the need to keep them. Plus, I have a base copy of the rules anyway, somewhere, which was the older sort one of the there was a freebie thing they were handing out at one point for 8th ed. I think I have one for 9th ed actually. Do I or do I not? I might have a basic with the rules, and even if I don't, I've got mates that play the game and they'll lend me their rulebook, and if I get it wrong, they'll tell me I've got it wrong. It's almost like that's a thing gamers do. So at this point, for me personally, I'm keeping the pullouts and I'm keeping a lot of the fluff and the fillable unit sheets and things like that, because they're the only things I really need to keep, and that is a very small portion of the magazine. So for me to turn around and say this magazine is worth the $8.99 cost just for the magazine would be a very difficult thing for me to actually say and believe. But if you add it to the fact you get something, obviously you've already got 9.20s worth of stuff for an $8.99 magazine, so you saved yourself 20p. And then, heck, if I ascribed I could probably justify saying that just for the bits I keep, it's probably worth £1. For the bits other people keep, you're probably looking at a reasonable price of £2.50 to £3. And once you add the bits on pieces onto that, that actually does bring the value up a little bit. And bear in mind, what I'm saying is the magazine purely itself, I probably value at £2 to £3. So yeah, that to me would be a reasonable price purely for what I want. I'm probably getting maybe £1 to 50p's worth of stuff out of it. But once you add everything you get every week, it actually saves me money. Particularly, even though I'm only collecting the Space Marines, it still saves me money, because some of the units, some of the magazines, you're making massive savings. You know, others not so much, but it all adds up. Okay, this is cool. Right, obviously, fun cover inside. Nothing special about that apart from our beloved Chapter Master Ian's signature. Next, we've got Ultramarine names and titles, and I love this. This to me is something that GW should be providing more of. It's additional content, and whilst to a certain extent it means little to nothing, it really is actually something very cool. You can name your squads, you can do bits and pieces, it helps you get into it. I mean, this personally is the stuff I love the most, which is just the little bits and pieces that really just inspire you or make you feel more invested in the game. Because at the end of the day, almost, none of this has a massive intrinsic value. I mean, these are just pigmented, this is just pigmented goo. This is probably a few pence worth of plastic. And the rule book is a big bunch of tree. I mean, it maybe be like £2 or £3. Yeah, even the big grey book, if you valued it just on the paper, probably only worth £2 or £3 in terms of raw materials. It's what's inside it and the way they put it together and other things that makes a difference. But what makes this, in my opinion, I've said this before, what makes this stuff worth it isn't what it is, it's how we enjoy it. So the fact that that looks fucking awesome to me is what makes it worth paying the money for it. It's what makes it worth paying the money that then gets paid to the artist that sculpts it. When you add all the things together, it can take a lot of money to bring you basically what is a piece of art. But it's only if that piece of art actually appeals to you and makes you feel something, or gives you, basically content in here or value for money in here, that it's worth anything more than just its base materials. So that to me is the fact that somebody probably spent a good few hours looking at different gold colors and mixing them to get this is worth it, not because it's a funny colored goo, but because of how much I enjoy it, and the joy that painting brings to me, the joy that building the models brings to me, and stuff like this that gives me extra joy, that gives me extra fun and enjoyment out of it. Is, to my mind, it's the best stuff. It's the stuff that it's the stuff I want. It's the stuff I pay for. Like I said, I don't pay for a few pence worth of plastic that's a funny shape. I pay for the fact that this guy looks fucking awesome. And I don't pay for sheets. I don't pay for just a magazine that might say things particularly if I already know them, but I pay for this stuff. I don't know if this is drawn from something else or if this is an original piece just for the magazine, but the fact that I can roll names on a dice and give those names, it's on a 66 sided dice, so a D66, so I'm guessing you have to roll 2 D6, but I can generate names and it gives me ideas for names and inspiration for names. That to me is the best value you're going to get out of this magazine. You know, stuff that basically makes you go, ooh, yeah. And if it doesn't make you go, ooh, it's just a piece of paper and it's not even worth anything. Yeah, because it's a bit of paper that you wouldn't, if it's not a bit of paper you enjoy, it's a bit of paper you don't want, and if you don't want something, it's not worth anything. We've got a little skit here. The genetic enhancements that lend each Space Marine their size and strength also grant them extended lifespans. Ooh. The greatest of these superhuman warriors may fight for centuries, earning titles and honours and leaving their name etched in the history books of their chapter. And some of them fight even more. I don't know if it's still canon, but one of the previous statements was that a Space Marine doesn't show any significant signs of aging until about 400 years old. Again, I don't know. I don't know if that's changed. And the lifespan of Space Marines vary. Some being only a few decades old, you know, like 30 or 40, because a Space Marine will be fully grown by 30 or 40. He's picked as a teenager and doesn't really take that much time to actually grow into a Space Marine, respective of their lifespan. But under the right circumstances, Space Marines can live for thousands of years. Under exceptional circumstances, Space Marines can live for tens of thousands of years. A prime example would be Bjorn the Fell-Handed, who walked with the Emperor and is over 10,000 years old. He hasn't been away for all that time. He stays in like stasis and just gets woken up. They are, because he's a dreadnought. Dreadnoughts are kind of aware of where they are, because they kind of dream while they're in stasis. But you know, it'd be interesting to learn how much time he's actually spent conscious. So Space Marines do have a long time. You have a long time to fight, provided they don't get killed. It's got a skit here about names. I'm not going to go through it, but it basically goes on about how a lot of the names have history, and a lot of names go back for centuries. And it also goes on to say that a lot of the names of Space Marine heroes are etched on monuments and kept down in books and spread throughout the Imperium. So that's one of the reasons why, particularly for example in the Ultramarine sector, you get a lot of similar names, because the naming traditions are affected by the tendencies and traditions of previous heroes. So you get a lot. I mean, these ones, it's basically a nice little excuse why, for example, Ultramarines all have Roman sounding names despite coming from several worlds. Some Space Marines all come from one world, and that world is dominated by a particular type of culture. Again, referring back to Space Wolves, just because they're my favourites. They come from a world which is steeped in a pseudo-Nordic culture, with some other cultural tendencies kind of put in there. So they're kind of space Viking werewolves, so you get a lot of names like Bjorn and Hrud and things like that, and Thorson and all kinds of things like that. But it's basically another way in which to give your chapter a certain level of uniqueness and individuality compared to other chapters, even if that chapter is the Ultramarines, which is basically your baseline chapter on which most other chapters were built. You can still give it a feel that's different to other chapters, not just by the paint job, but by having names, having champions, having characters. If the model dies, you can rename it under another character, just to try and keep things going along. And it's a really great way. It's a really great way of getting more invested in the game, which usually results in you getting a bit more joy out of the game. it explains what D66 is there. It is not, as you might think, a dice that has 1 to 66, but rather it's just rolling 2d6, and it gives you 36 possible outcomes. In this case, ranging from 11 to 66. Is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't, fuck it. I'm sure it's 66. We've got some other tables here. Space Marine hero titles. We've got suffixes and prefixes on a D33, which
Roxy.
It doesn't explain what a D33 is, but it goes from 11 to 33. So I'll have a roll D33. Okay, yeah, there it is, the exclamations on the top. You roll 2 dice, and they're D3s. The first dice gives you the tens, the second dice gives the unit, which is fairly obvious. I should have thought of that. Ah, there. Don't mock me. You've got Space Marine hero titles or Space Marine honorifics, such as if we put all this together, let's say, so let's take the D11, the first results from all of them. You've got Barros Vespertar, the Shield of Corvin. Yeah. Another example, let's say just changing the last one, if we'd have rolled the 33, which is the bottom result, you have Barros Vespertar, the Shield of Megaria. And you've got honorific titles, which are for units of Space Marines. Or chapters or anything like that. A squad of Space Marines really cool, might be called, and again, this is just the 11 result, the Quicksilver Souls, which sounds cool. Worth noting that they give you the stuff to roll so you can randomly give them names, but also it's inspiration. So if you have a unit that really delivers all the time, you can give it a specific name. They've done the same for Necrons as well, which is fantastic. And again, I'll read out the first result. So we've got Kopek the Unliving, and then what else have we got? We've got Dynastic Epithets Generator title. So not quite the same as a hero thing, but similar. And if I read out the 11, we've got the 11 thing. We'll be going with Kopek the Unliving, Lord of the Starless Void, loyal retainer of the Silent King. Epithets are much more descriptive. That's what an epithet is. And with this one, you can kind of hear that they're very long-winded, very drawn-out titles. With the Egyptian titles and with a lot of the noble titles that you get, that's kind of how it worked. The more titles you had, the more important you were. So you wanted those titles to be big, important, and awesome. And you wanted to like, include your title, or include every title you had, like Lord or Master or Guardian. Again, if I change to the last one on the end, we've got Kopek the Unliving. Actually, I'll go with the last one both. Right hand of the Triarch, Imperator of the Crucius Nebula. So you can see there's like right hand is a title, Imperator is a title, and it's all pretty cool. And again, you can roll it or use it for inspiration, whatever you like. Next, we have Necron unit names. It says here, though most Necron nobles treat their troops, particularly near mindless Necron warriors, with contempt, they have been known to grant names and titles to those units that serve them well. You know, like you might name your sword or your favourite instrument or something like that. These guys might think that might develop certain affection, or at the very least favouritism towards certain troops. So a troop of Necrons might be called the Gilded Host or the Flensing Annihilators. And again, you can roll that, or you can just pick one if it makes sense to your guys. Yeah, so that's yeah, I can't express how much I think, how cool I think that is. It's additional content. It's not just something that is cool in this book, but it's something that will make your games cooler every game. And so additional content like that, and like the inspirational stories that kind of give you a reason to be more invested, really multiply out, because they, you know, because if you like them and if they're good for you, they improve every game you play. It's not just a case of, oh, now I know this. It's a case of, oh, right. And the same can be argued for a lot of stuff, but I think this stuff is the stuff that really hits home. We've then got the Era Indomitus, the Imperium Resurgent, divided in two by the Great Rift and threatened by countless foes. The Imperium of mankind looks to its greatest living hero for salvation. Obviously, they're talking about Leman Russ there. I mean, they've got to have a picture of that guy because he's around, but the greatest living hero is clearly Leman Russ. No, joking. Obviously, joking aside. It's what you've got here is we've got a lot of information about the Imperium, about how it works, how it's created, particularly about how it was, and some of the things in the past. And we're getting a lot more information now. This one's dedicated to how things are now, how things are in the wake of Abaddon's Black Crusade and the Great Rift. It's giving you some description and giving you some description of the difference between the side on Earth and the side away from Earth, and the things that you can do, and the things that have been done and are done. It's not just that one small line, it's got another half page. Then you've got the Imperium of War, which gives you, again, some idea of how the stuff works. You know, the Imperial War Machine, the Crusade Fleets, and the Lord Commander, which obviously is Rabute Girlyman. So, and despite all the jokes, Rabute Girlyman, and Rabute is how it's pronounced, is actually really cool. We want to see other Primarchs come back. Sorry. We want to see other Primarchs come back, and that's probably going to happen at some point when it's most profitable, because they are a business. But this guy is badass, and frankly, due to his nature, he's actually a solid addition to any force. You know, you want to really paint him up as Ultramarines, although you have some variants. If you're playing with other Ultramarine forces, he's not going to be painted up as Space Marines. But there's no reason that... Sorry, he's not going to be painted up as other Space Marine chapters. For example, he's not going to wear Dark Angel colours or Flesh Terror colours. But it's entirely likely that he would turn up on a Flesh Terror campaign and lend his weight to a campaign if he thought it was tactically appropriate. So that there's no reason why you can't buy him and just have him turn up and do his thing. Certainly not story-wise. So he's pretty cool. Next we've got the how to paint. They've actually got instructions on how to load brushes, and that's really cool. You put your paint on there with a big brush, wash it off, and then you pull it through the paint and you twist it. Some people prefer a dab. The reason you twist is so that you don't get lumps of paint. If you're base coating, that's not such a big thing because you can just smear it around. But particularly for detailing, you want enough paint on it and within the bristles of the brush that you're able to paint, but you don't want blobs. So that's actually a fairly good idea. It also recommends bracing the wrists and stuff like that. A lot of people have different ways of bracing their wrists. They've got it on the table, which is quite low down. If you want it higher, for example, I use my knees. I've seen people use pillows. I've seen people have like basically baby tables that they sit on their table so they can just rest their wrists. There's lots of ways you can do it. Here they've got him resting on a hardwood table. Personally, if I were going to do that, I'd put something under my wrists, because if you're going to be on a hardwood table for a long period of time, you're going to get sore wrists and it's going to be annoying. The rest is fairly simple basic painting to paint the unit, one of the units that you already have. How to add the white to it, so that's all, yeah, that's stuff you don't really need to see and know. And they've got instructions on the gold. One thing I will say about the gold, and they've almost certainly said here, is you're better, gold, metallic paints in general can be thick and gloopy. You're better off watering them down and adding several layers than you are just trying to get them to be solid in the first layer, because by the time you get them to be solid in the first layer, by the time you get them to be solid in the first layer, you're going to be obscuring detail, and some of the detail on these miniatures is pretty fine. Not much of it's shallow, but not much of it's shallow, certainly in the areas where you're likely to paint gold, but it is shallow in some areas, and if you want to paint gold there, it works better if you water it down. Next, we've got a set of rules. You're using your intercessors. And yes, here we go. Strength and toughness. Your intercessors need it, so you've got
Roxy.
You've got strength and toughness on the intercessors. Roxy, heal. Sorry. You've got strength and toughness on the intercessors, which I assume was in there, but I hadn't fully read. Get out of it. I hadn't fully read the 9th net rules, so I hadn't read them at all at the beginning. So I think I have a base. I think I've looked at a base copy freebie somewhere, but I don't remember looking over it. I may be thinking of 8th ed, but you know, when I actually get around to playing some more, I will be doing this, which hopefully should be soon. Now things have really calmed down. So we've got your strength, we've got your toughness, and strength of user, and we've got your data sheets explaining how to use them. We've got some of the wound rolls, which is strength versus toughness. If the strength is twice as much, it's a 2+ to wound. If the strength is greater, it's a 3+ to wound. If the strength is equal, it's a 4+, lower is a 5+, and half is a 6+. I do like that. I do like that. I know I like the weapon skill and ballistic skill being 3+, but I do like the fact that what your character does affects the results. That's something that has been in most bits, most previous editions, and I'm happy to see it in this one. You've got your little battle plan, which is awesome. And what else? Yep. Continued battle plan. They can be worth keeping even if the additions get replaced, because a lot of battle plans are fairly easy to convert. What else have we got? We got the last page, and it's just the basics. Guidance. Go to your local friendly Warhammer store, or go to your local friendly gaming store. Warhammer community. There's a lot of stuff on the internet, and it can really make you feel involved. Or you can go to the Facebook Warhammer groups, in which you can watch many people just complain a lot. And I'm not going to say their complaints aren't justified. Many of those complaints are justified, but you know, it seems to be 90% of what happens online. And you've got stuff recommending all the things you can do. And for the last page, which is actually a little more interesting than usual, next week it's telling you you're getting a Necron Lord, but the week after, well, next week's telling you you're getting Necron Lord, Necron Overlord, paint your Necrons, do battle on the tabletop. So that's what they're advertising for next week, and after that, they're actually advertising the next 2 weeks, if we get the sheen of it. And you can see that's because over the next 2 weeks, you're getting a full big squad of Necrons. That full big squad of Necrons is being done over over issue 9 and issue 10, with you getting a bunch of Necrons in issue 9 and a top up of Necron Warriors in issue 10, backed up by Scarabs. Let's have a look at what we got on the actual magazine. Issue 9 is Necron Warriors and Scarabs. Oh no, they're doing it in both ways. Oh no, they're actually going the opposite way. It just looks like that. Yeah. So issue 9 is Necron Warriors and Scarabs. The Space Marine chapter fold out. An action-packed playthrough. Issue 10 is more Necron reinforcements, paint your new models, and a new playthrough. So that's all pretty cool. Even if you're dividing a pack of warriors up, you're probably getting a £25 to £30 pack for £18 because it's about £9 a magazine. So that's still a significant saving. Okay, that's all for this week. So I will see you guys next week, fingers crossed, for issue 8. Wrong side.